1,100 hours of volunteer time were donated through Earth Gives Day. Hundreds of organizations and nonprofit leaders across the US were contacted, connected with, and listened to. And truly, awe set in on all the amazing work that I heard about, what those folks do day in and day out as a team. And we got yeses from people like Bill McKibbins and Zan Jones and Monica Atkins to join our first new action-inspiring Power Hour programs. We were inspired to shop at farmers markets and lean toward a zero-waste life and realize that climate justice is made possible through every large and small choice that we make. We started the year kicking off virtual gatherings for nonprofits across the US. We learned together, and the more learning and connections were made also at South by Southwest earlier this year, back in March. It was clear that climate solutions were plentiful, yet there were two key takeaways from that time in Austin that stuck with me. Passionate ocean scientists said, there is no silver bullet, only silver buckshot. The point, we need all the ideas, and every one of these nonprofits here today doing what they need to do as far as advancing their missions. Then came along Patagonia CEO Ryan Gellert, and he was interviewed by Katie Couric. And he was asked what his biggest fear was. And he said, it isn't climate change, it's apathy. Point. We need all of you and everyone that you know to help drive the solutions. So hello, everyone. I'm Rhonda Bannard. I'm the founder and executive director of Earth Gives. Our idea for change making is through a connected community, starting with an ecosystem of incredible nonprofits like all of you. Why? They already have boots on the ground, boats in the ocean, lawyers in courtrooms, and advocates in the halls of government. They have volunteers marching, healing wildlife, and planting carbon capturing trees. They give voice to the issues to protect life on this one special planet. Their profit is keeping this planet clean and green for us now and our families into the future. Maybe because I've worked in and held leadership roles within the sector, I'm a bit fond of the overlooked, scrappy nonprofit sector. We are the make the world a better place to live safety net. And yet a lot of you go unnoticed for the outsized impact that you have. As a desert dweller, I never thought much about Charles Scribner, and yet his work leading the Black River Waterkeepers in Birmingham has a significant impact. He's part of a US-wide team of river keepers and water keepers that literally protect our lifelines, the rivers. And I'm thankful for people like him who reach out to his network to share more about Earth Gives and Earth Gives Day. Today, we're here not to just mark the 2023 Earth Gives Day, but to celebrate those organizations and their teams that rallied the most dollars or most donors. And in some cases, both, as you will see, it's definitely a trend. Those that rose to the top receive dollars from our prize fund pool. Those many generous donors who pitched in to incent organizations to rally even more Earth givers. For the next bit, we're going to introduce you to the work of several organizations. Their people and their heart will work from small nonprofits all the way to overall. And on the way, thank a few folks and share a bit about our Power Hour sessions in the middle. And we'll close with a special message and award with Douglas Chadwick and some other folks. So now it's my great privilege to turn the presentation over to one of Earth Gives board members, Ginger Sykes Torres. She's a leader in the USDA Farm Services here in Arizona, a certified environmental planner, a mom of 3 amazing kids, and a member of the Navajo Nation. So Ginger, take it away.
Hi, everybody. You've likely heard that all change is local. Well, when it comes to our first prize fund recipient in the small nonprofit category, that's the very mantra they are driven by. Based in Vermont, this group punches above its weight. Jack Hansen, who leads the group, is a former Burlington City Council leader. He might understand a thing or two about local impact. Along with his teammate, Phoebe Melchinsky, and their amazing intern team, the Run on Climate Education Fund drives change by providing free training to candidates from across the US seeking local office. They educate and share insights on climate policies and advocacy efforts that can have impacts within cities, especially within a specific focus on moving from fossil fuels to renewable energy. They also connect already elected leaders to share resources and their own on-the-job insights to help others best understand what is working when it comes to climate action within their cities. Because of Earth Gives Day, Run on Climate Education Fund was able to bring in more than 50 new donors. That is part of what helped them receive top honors for most donors and receive a $1,000 prize fund gift. Congratulations to Jack and the team. Thanks to additional prize dollars donated, Earth Gives is also able to offer a second place prize. And in the category of most donors and most dollars, we have a Mean Green volunteer team. Meet SRAG, also known as the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, based in Wisconsin and, well, everywhere. You have all probably heard of Rotarians, a global community of volunteers doing important service work in their communities. Well, a few years back, Lawrence Hands and Karen Hendrick Hands put together a tiny all-volunteer effort to empower the Rotary family in the world of environmental sustainability. The environment is now an additional pillar for the Rotary, and their efforts are just getting started. SRAG works on biodiversity, pollution, climate, sustainable living, food systems, and the circular economy. True to form, Rotary volunteers stepped up as health issues might have kept SRAG from even participating in Earth Gives Day. And now they report new friendships with the ability to hire a content publisher and events coordinator to expand their reach. A special thanks to Lori Zuckerman, and a big congrats to SRAG for winning a total of $500 for their second place efforts in both categories. And finally, in the small nonprofit category, a group that is as scrappy as it is smart, tiny and local to Idaho, yet with global impacts, participating in last year's proof of concept effort for Earth Gives Day, Terra Graphics International Foundation, or TIFO, for short, also logged the biggest year-over-year gain in dollars raised with an additional $4,200 raised compared to last year. TIFO believes all people have the right to live and work in a healthy environment. Its small team, led by Dr. Casey Bartram, is backed by a strong board and a collaborative partners, including communities, governments, universities, and other stakeholders. Their projects focus on communities impacted by climate change, both in traditional and less obvious ways. Their global reach includes projects from Peru to Nigeria, Senegal to the Aral Sea. Within the United States, they've worked with the Shoshone Paiute tribe on the Duck Valley Indian Reservation. TIFO launched a collaborative environmental education program to better understand and deal with the disproportionate environmental burdens related to mining, fisheries collapse, as well as a lack of representation of Native students in STEM fields. They blend traditional ecological knowledge with Western science to work with the community and students so they may better understand and address local environmental challenges relating to mining, dams, repairing ecosystem functions, and climate change. Today, we get to celebrate TIFO's amazing journey of environmental justice stewards, both here in the United States and abroad. Congratulations to Casey and her team for receiving $1,000 in prize gift money for raising the most dollars. I now get to pass the honors for the medium-sized nonprofit presentation to my Earth Gives board colleague, Elaine Cohen-Fogel. She's an artist in all ways possible, from the written word to supporting nonprofits and fundraising, both here in the US and Canada, to branding, singing and songwriting, and now uses a painter's canvas as her stage. Take it away, Elaine.
Thanks, Ginger. I'm doing it the old-fashioned way, looking down and looking up. But I get to share a bit about 3 amazing groups in the medium-sized nonprofit category group. One based out of Missouri, another from Colorado, and a third from South Carolina. The organization that came in second for rallying the most dollars, I get to share a bit about a group that had an impact on a special place in the state I now call home, Arizona. EchoFlight focuses on conservation aviation. They are the eyes in the sky that bring an aerial perspective to educate on and advance the stewardship of the environment, especially when there might be conflicting viewpoints. The group played an important role in the designation of the Baj Nwachowita Kukveni Grand Canyon National Monument, which brought President Joe Biden out to the canyon to sign the special designation. And the nonprofits we've welcomed to Earth Gives intersect in ways they might not even know. Here's one example. A recent Echo flight provided an aerial perspective of the Snake River for those working to save salmon, steelhead, and orcas. There is growing momentum to remove the lower 4 Snake River dams, which will help restore 140 miles of river and more than 14,000 acres of riparian habitat. Salmon mortality caused by dams could be cut by at least 50%. The Snake River Fund was a welcome participant. From mining to timberland to designating national monuments, we are thankful for the work of Jane Pargeter, exec, and Amanda Grimstead for running and being of service to conservation efforts through EchoFlight. We were thrilled to welcome you to Earth Gives and congratulate you for winning $250 for most dollars in the medium-sized nonprofit category. You are a clear example that it takes all kinds of nonprofits to advance critical stewardship work. In the second spot for most donors is the Win Your Rivers Alliance. This group is focused on protecting the health of the lands and waters of the Great Winyah Bay watershed. It is often said rivers are life, and this alliance of river keepers likely repeat this often. It's about the life for fishing, for swimming, and for drinking water. The group educates people who are impacted by this 3rd largest watershed on the East Coast in order to guard against threats to their clean water and to conserve the land for the benefits of families into the future. Led by Deborah Buffkin, this small team does outsized work for such critical veins of the earth. We're thrilled to share an additional $250 for your second place spot for most donors. The top spot, drum roll, for both most dollars and most donors in the medium-sized category goes to, and I guess I should say this correctly, Missouri Wildlife Rescue Center. Earth Gives was thrilled that the St. Louis Foundation encouraged its environmental nonprofits to join this effort. And we ended up with some great groups. The Wildlife Rescue Center is one example of what a small but mighty effort can do. Since 1979, this nonprofit has been caring for the sick, injured, and orphaned wildlife in their area and returning them back to their habitats. As you can imagine, there is no stop-start for caring for wildlife. You don't just go home and the day is done. So volunteers power up this group. In fact, they calculate that 17,000 hours of volunteer time is devoted each year. That was on display through Earth Gives Day, when 8 people powered up their own peer-to-peer fundraisers on behalf of the organization and helped them own the spot for the most money raised for a participating nonprofit. The Wildlife Rescue Center has more than 21,000 followers on Instagram. They have a powerful hands-on internship program for college students, and results are seen through healed turtles, squirrels, and other wildlife returned to their habitats. Congrats for receiving an additional $2,000 for rallying the most donors and the most dollars. Now I believe Rhonda has a few important thank yous to share before we get to the large and overall recipients. Turning it to you, Rhonda.
Thank you so much, Elaine and Ginger. That was great. Such important work. I heard many stories in our outreach from coast to coast, and there is one thing that they all share, and that is a passion for driving solutions related to climate and the environment. And yet, while doing that, the continual need to build trust and tell stories and ask for investment and support. The big idea in Dream for Earth Gives and Earth Gives Day is to invite in and help more people identify as Earth givers. So that shows up in all the things that they do, and especially and particularly boost environmental giving beyond just 2%. We've got to do that to be able to speed and scale the impact that is necessary. And we continue to find more folks near and far who want to help out. So we had an idea. What if we could inspire individual donors to give to at least 2 or more nonprofits? And so we were looking for some raffle prizes. And one local small business person stepped up. Her name's Kathleen Mitchell. She's the founder of Kaya Holistic. And she was the first to say, choose me. She offered up a great prize package that we all got to promote to inspire donors to give to at least 2 nonprofits to be entered to win. The $700 wellness package was shipped off to the lucky recipient. We have a twist on that a little bit later in this program. You can find out more about her at kayaholistic.com. So thank you, Kathleen. And if any of you know of some awesome, huge packages we can offer next year, you can hit me up for sure. Research shows that one of the reasons why people don't often give to environmental nonprofits is because the story is hard to tell and the payoff isn't instant. As a former journalist, I consume with curiosity how information is shared on the climate emergency that we're all facing. Doom doesn't inspire action. We want to welcome people in. And so we did that by shaping what we called our Power Hour programs. And there were some amazing people who stepped up to deliver actionable advice for everyone listening in. We started first with circularity, recycling, and zero waste. Special kudos go to EcoCycle for going first in the lineup. This group is led by Zan Jones. She's the former mayor of Boulder, so she understands the intersection of policy and nonprofit action, supported by Anna Lesky and her great team. It was so powerful. And every single one of these presentations is evergreen. So we're going to invite you to definitely watch them. EcoCycle is one of the oldest zero waste nonprofits in the country. They're a powerhouse of knowledge base information to really shift the way you exist in the world. So definitely check them out. And you can listen to more going to the Earth Gives website, where all of these recordings are available for you to listen to personally or share with others. And we're so thankful to university students from across the United States that helped in the breakout sessions, because we listened to the presentations and then we went into breakouts to reconfirm what people were willing to do. Hale Ohl from Rutgers. She's also an eco-athlete, one of the other nonprofit participants. Sophia Beam from the University of Illinois. Natalie Ramirez from ASU. And Gabe from the University of Cincinnati, also involved in Net Impact among other students that participated. The Regenerative Agriculture Foundation and Mark Muller led the second Power Hour with great additional insights from Climate Central's Peter Gerard, who you may have just met as we just started this program. And then we had one of those pinch me moments when Bill McKibben said yes, and Third Act was part of that project and program. He got to be introduced, or we asked him to be introduced by 2 other powerhouses, 2 women from the Western Environmental Law Center who argued the case in the Held v. Montana situation, Melissa Hornbein and Barbara Chilcott, both of WELP. And then finally, the Climate Justice Alliance, with special thanks to Holly, who helped pull that together, the amazing presenters, and Mark Chavez and Monica Atkins. Their insight guide our work in all that we do and to be individual advocates in our communities. We'd love you to, again, check out these special presentations. And of course, a special thanks to my son, Heath Bannard, for putting a little recap together for you. Take a look. Talk about some change makers. Boy, do we have a lineup for you. Welcome all to Earth Gives Power Hour.
Without further ado, please meet Suzanne Jones.
Mark Muller is here with us.
My name is Monica Atkins. I'm one of 3 co-executive directors of the Climate Justice Alliance.
Welcome, Bill McKibben.
We better get cracking.
A circular economy is where resources are continuously cycled through the system, like what we see in nature. The result is that we regenerate nature, we're not using it up.
What do you support?
Buy as much local, buy organic.
Really inform and spread the word.
What we have to do is aggregate solutions to scale.
Knowledge is a key accessory.
We need to elect leaders that are informed and committed to change. Heck, you should run for office yourself.
So just be ready to enter a process of building trust with the community if you want to do this work.
The world you leave behind is, well, it is your biggest legacy, which just means what kind of world you've left for the people you love the most.
Whatever we can do to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we want to sequester carbon in the soil. And those are just indicators of going in the right direction. The bigger picture is about our relationship with the land, our relationship with each other.
Not just about, growing food or growing like culturally relevant foods. It is about doing that in a way that respects the earth.
The most important thing an individual can do at any moment is not an individual. Join together with others in movements large enough to make the change we need.
So one of the ways that people can help out are peer-to-peer fundraisers. And we just wanted to showcase, and I think Michael is on board, and I know Tim's here, Deborah is here. I'm not sure if Phil Weil's on, but people can really make a difference when they do the peer-to-peer fundraising. And this is a great way that the platform works. And we wanted to thank Neon One that serves as our platform for Earth Gives Day. And a big, big shout out to Josh Abed, Jean-Louis, who helped me so much. Josh Abed, you know how much I appreciate everything that you did. But their platform and our platform together helps you invite friends and family and board members and vendors and others to also spread the word, to reach out to folks that you may not have otherwise been able to touch base with. So thank you to all the top peer-to-peer fundraisers. It's now my pleasure to turn the program over to Kirk Baxter, a longtime do-good champion in this community on all kinds of initiatives, especially within the LGBTQ community, including starting his own nonprofit that to this day serves a huge amount of people. He has been a devoted supporter of Earth Gives Day from the very start. Thank you so much, Kirk, for being here to present the large nonprofit category.
My pleasure. Earth Gives Day, and today the celebratory Zoom that this is for all of the people who participated is an honor to be part of. It's a joy for me. And when it comes to the large nonprofit category, we have once again 3 organizations we get to highlight. First, please meet Wildlife Guardians, recipients of the second prize for the most donors. They were nipping at the heels of the first prize winners, but we say with confidence because the spirit of healthy cooperation, we know they'll be back and they will not want to give up easily. These legal eagles on behalf of the America West fight in court and beyond for rivers, wildlife, and places, climate, and energy. Right now, they're keenly focused on wildlife management from persecution to the end game, which is protection. With the 50th anniversary of the Endangered Species Act upon us, this group tenaciously advocates for gray wolves and, yes, the Joshua Tree, which is facing extinction by the end of this century. We congratulate Kevin Gauthier Bankoff, Caitlin Oxley, Lindsay Beidel, and their team throughout the Southwest. The reason why we're saying names and not just mentioning the organizations is that we all know there is no mission work without the people behind the scenes, including the ones who engage donors, build membership, and guide outreach who more often than not, may not be the ones at the podium, but the ones behind the scenes making it easier for the leaders who are. We know you're working hard to enable the good work of your execs and attorneys and so many others arguing the cases. So congrats on receiving the additional $250 on top of the donations you brought in. We very much appreciate you being engaged in Earth Gives Day from the very start. From the Southwest to the Northwest we go as we celebrate Conservation Northwest as the top finisher in both dollars and donors. That means another $2,000 for your work. Since its founding in 1989, restoring habitat connectivity has been a key effort, helping wildlife find food, mates, and supporting their migration. This group successfully protected key wildlife corridors and reconnected habitats between Washington's North and South Cascades, all the way from British Columbia coast and to the Chilcotin Range to the North Cascades and elsewhere. Their team is deeply connected to the work and the land. A shout out to Natalie Hauser, Megan Madden, and Executive Director Mitch Friedman, and with congrats to the whole team for protecting such beautiful landscapes for all. I could go on, but I have a feeling we'll be hearing more about them again in just a moment. I'm here personally because Earth Gives founder Rhonda has been someone I've known for a very good long time. And if I might share one thing about her, it's all about supporting and celebrating people and groups for the work they do. So it's no surprise that she sees a key part of Earth Gives being inspiring people to give their voice to the cause. So we are thrilled to welcome and celebrate the #2 prize winner for most dollars in the large nonprofit category, Climate Voice. Through rallying the voices of employees working at major companies, this organization works to speed and scale the decarbonization of our world toward a sustainable future. They activate employees of larger companies to use their personal power. They educate executives to increase the number in the ranks of pro-climate companies. They shine spotlights as more will see where change can and should be made. They also track the work of corporations and trade associations to hold the powerful accountable. Thank you to Deborah McNamara, the co-executive director who championed a lot of this work. And we wanted to take a moment to also recognize her counterpart and founder of Climate Voice, Bill Wheel, who in 2006 became the green energy czar at Google and went on to be the director of sustainability at Facebook. Starting in 2020, he shifted his focus on the outsized impact of major companies on climate policy, and he's doing it all with a recent diagnosis of ALS. In a recent post on LinkedIn, he wrote about the power of his voice, even though he can no longer speak. And with great urgency, invites us all to compel major companies to speak up in support of climate policies. On behalf of Earth Gives, we were honored to welcome you to this initiative and celebrate all that you're doing to push the critical big changes needed through the individual voices coming together. I now get to hand the baton to Tim Estey for the overall prize presentation. You should know that Tim used to be one of those big company engineers, a groundbreaking problem-solving leader at Intel. Tim went on to help other major companies and now works in service to support the next generation of leaders, including the use of Tai Chi. He also actively involved 2 nonprofits that participated in Earth Gives Day, all part of this great movement growing. And they were REAP, capital R-E-A-P, REAP Goodness, and the Boyce Thompson Arboretum. Tim?
Thank you very much, Kirk.
Sure.
So first, it's an honor, along with my wife, Shelley, to be some of the many prize fund donors for the Earth Gives Day. This is our 3rd year doing this, and we're honored to do so. I want to give a shout out to the executive director of REAP Goodness, who is here. That's Carol Mineta. If you can see Carol, give a wave. Carol's the visionary for that organization. And then I want to thank Rhonda, because this idea, this Earth Gives Day, has really kickstarted the fundraising for REAP Goodness, where I've been volunteering for the last 3 years. So it's been really helpful in kind of getting us moving forward in fundraising. So without further ado, let's get on to the overall awards, and they're overall because the winners can come from any of the categories. So it's the most of the most. There was less than a $500 difference in the amounts brought in by the two organizations that brought in the most dollars. In a close second place, Kim Rutledge and the Missouri Wildlife Rescue Center, who we've heard a little bit about in the past already today, they're going to receive an extra $750 for having the second most amount of money brought in. It's nice to see a little bit of extra support going for an organization that makes themselves available at any time of day and night to rescue injured animals. We understand it's been a particularly interesting period this last couple of weeks. They had animals coming in, birds coming in that don't belong in that ecosystem. And so they had to reach out around the country and learn how to help out these birds. So it's great that they're going to get something extra. And along those lines, while we're talking about that, I'm happy to report they also took first place in most donors overall. So in addition to the extra $750, they're going to receive another $1,500. So they're doing great on the prize fund money. And this should help them support many more, like we heard before, turtles, rabbits, snakes, birds that belong there, birds that don't belong there. Congrats to Kim and her team. We'll come back to most overall dollars last in just a moment. I want to go to second place for the most donors. And that goes to the Run on Climate Education Fund, truly showing an outsized effort to rally so many donors for their good work. And I'm being told that I should also say congrats on a win in last week's election. Sounds like you've got another climate champion. That's what the handlers are telling me. For rallying the second most donors overall, they'll receive another $750. So congratulations again to Run on Climate Education Fund. And now we end the prize fund awards with Conservation Northwest. And this is a big award, so I want to say a little bit more about them. We've heard about them also today. They brought in nearly $15,000 to support their work through Earth Gives. Who wouldn't want to support the awe-inspiring grizzlies and lynx that they share on their Instagram and Facebook feeds? Yet their work is more than just posting pictures. It's about relocating and rewilding areas that for these amazing animals. It's about protecting forests and other wildlands for critical carbon sequestration and habitat protection. If you're a hiker, a camper, a skier, if you like to fish, Conservation Northwest makes that all possible. Their Forest Field program helps them become one of the first groups to recognize power of community collaboration and landscape scale forest restoration. There's a lot of big words in there. Okay, the team is actively advocating for the restoration of grizzly bears to Washington's North Cascades. So we've got a grizzly theme today. And that's where the animals were once abundant. Conservation Northwest knows success means rallying the public around the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's consideration of more flexibility to manage the bear's population through the Endangered Species Act. And they're doing that. It's called Collaboration for Conservation. Thank you, Conservation Northwest, for your important work, and congratulations for adding another $15,000 prize to your fantastic fundraising. I'll turn it back to Rana.
Tim Eskew, thank you so much for hanging with us. We really appreciate you and Shelley's investment in our work. So that's so inspiring. And David, you're right. Conservation Northwest, I mean, really great work. It's truly an honor that all of you would trust us to create the early beginnings of a US-wide single issue giving day, the most consequential issue of our time. We hope that these pioneering cohorts, all of you, stick with us as we continue to grow. Before I get to a special award and to our special guest, a few additional thank yous. Thanks to our prize fund donors, matching fund donors. You are the renewable fuel to ignite giving and generosity. So thank you so much. Thank you to the scrappy team that helped pitch in, a longtime colleague, Luann Phillips, Morgan and Heath Bannard, Yet It's a Family Affair, Holly Sarkeesian, Billy Foster, and Clara Phillips, who we might have just inspired to go into environmental law. When this idea for a giving day was first being formulated, I reached out to an adventurer, a world adventurer who had started his own nonprofit supporting and combating climate and health risks in Nepal and elsewhere. We met, we talked, he said yes, he became a founding board member, and then he cajoled groups like SRAG and the Explorers Club to engage with Earth Gives. He's even been feted by the Explorers Club, and he's done a whole lot more. But for his lifetime of efforts to make the world a better place, he's now somewhere in the far reaches of the Middle East, so he's not on Zoom with us today. We are honored to have had the opportunity to work with George Bash, fondly known as Explorer George. With a lifetime like his, it seemed fitting to actually name the award after him, so we did. And last year, we awarded it to David Lawler, who was with the Western Environmental Law Center at the time, and now he's with a California organization. So congratulations. But today, we get to honor our first executive director with the George Bash Earth Champion Award. She is a kind, fierce, smart champion for environmental justice, a teacher and a researcher, a team player and a trust builder. One of her colleagues calls her one of a kind. They say she is grounded and driven, a pure heart, a brilliant mind, and a great supporter of the next generation of environmental scientists, both globally and locally. And she's able to work across cultures and willing to go the extra mile. She gets the best of each day. In fact, one of her friends shared that they were both the get up at the crack of dawn types of people, and they hit the Moscow mountain for a run. They put on their headlamps. The dogs are ready, rain or shine, snow or ice. They are there. The same would happen when they were in the Kyrgyzstan Republic for work. What we saw in Casey Bartram of Terra Graphics International Foundation is an example of all of that. She joined me last year in a totally last-minute live showcase of the work that she was doing with Indigenous high school students attending a STEM conference. This year, as part of our monthly nonprofit Community Commons Impact Makers programs, she rallied a group of incredible experts on how to build trust with the communities that you serve. She has supported a number of nonprofits wondering who we are and what we're all about, and so she's served as a testimonial. And she shared her own appeals to raise money and awareness for this Giving Day. And she's also made some of her own donations to a number of organizations. And when she did, she actually won the wellness package. But in true form for Casey, she actually emailed me and she said, could you send it to one of our top donors instead? And so we did. So we are not surprised at all at Casey's pay it forward kind of energy, whether she's in Moscow, Idaho, or helping communities across the globe. And I'm personally honored to have gotten to know her over time. And we get to send you the special Earth Gives Earth Champion, George Bash Earth Champion. And what you'll know about this little bell here is it's actually made by a nonprofit called Ben's Bells. It's a nonprofit that was founded here in Arizona based on kindnesses shared across the globe. So I hope every time when you look at this, that you think of the kind person that you are and the impact that you're having on the world. So Casey, do you have a few words to share with us?
I'm really shocked a little bit and very honored. You guys are all very sneaky. I think that to be included in this wonderful honor from such an incredible group of people rallying together around the things that really matter in life is something I don't really have the words for off the top of my head, but it means a lot. And I just want to thank you, Rhonda, for everything that you're doing and all of the people who stepped up to support the organizations doing the good work, helping with this prize funds, but also just spreading the word about the organizations doing those things. And to the organizations and the people on the ground working, you know, it's something I don't have words for to say how wonderful it is to be a part of that network, to be a small piece of it. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm definitely at a loss for words, and grateful to you all.
Congrats, Casey. I'm sure we'll be talking more. So it's my good opportunity to pass this to Ginger to introduce our guest speaker. And I guess before that, I would just say thank you everyone for being here. Congratulations on all the awards. And now to the awesome Ginger Sykes-Torres to introduce our guest speaker. Ginger?
Hello again, everybody. So I'm here to introduce our guest speaker, Douglas Chadwick. So not born with a silver spoon in his mouth, more like a Bausch and Lomb microscope as an additional appendage handed down by his father. Our special guest speaker spent his early years fascinated at seeing all things much larger than their normal size, such as cat fur, cereal, moldy bread, dabs of blood, a leaf here and there, you name it. Curiosity ruled for him. And by the time he reached his early 20s, he ventured out to bigger expanses with binoculars in hand. Montana's Rockies and the mountain goats that live there became his focus for the next 7 years. And we can fast forward a few decades, and this wildlife biologist turned his life study into a clarion call on what we've all been doing to our planet. Knowing the intricacies of life, his latest of many books, 4/5 the Grizzly by Douglas Chadwick, invites us to consider a new perspective that might be a way to protect our future. It's my honor to turn the program over to wildlife champion of much of the larger kind, Douglas Chadwick, a veteran environmental writer who will share more about our relationship to nature. Thank you and welcome, Doug.
Thanks very much. It's an honor to be among dedicated groups and people like yourself. And I say that as a member, I'm a board member of 2 nonprofits. And one is the Vital Ground Foundation. We heard about grizzly bears and Conservation Northwest. We use the grizzly bear as our guide, as an umbrella species for protecting land in the Northwest region, particularly in the Rocky Mountain part of it. I'm also on the board of the Liz Claiborne Art Ortenberg Foundation, which supports community-based conservation around the world. Having studied single species from whales and elephants to the social lives of ants in Australia, I felt like, well, we don't have time to keep looking at individual places or individual species that need attention. Or I felt I didn't have time because I had done that before. For example, volunteering to help study wolverines for a number of years because they were on anybody's radar. And now, due partly to the efforts of the Western Environmental Law Center, there's a good possibility they may be listed as threatened in the near future. Anyway, I wanted to take on a bigger subject, and there are so many environmental issues out there. There's, one hardly knows where to start. But beneath it all is the fact that you can't care deeply about something that you don't know much about. And we know a whole lot less, or are unwilling to see how nature works than we think we do. I'm talking about the general public. And you're not going to save it if you don't care, and you're not going to care until you understand it. and our understanding of our relationship with nature and who and what we are needs some work. So let me start off by reading a quick quote from Aldo Leopold from the middle of the last century, a pioneer ecologist. The individual is a member of a community of interdependent parts. The land ethic simply enlarges the boundaries of the community to include soils, waters, plants, and animals, or collectively the land. We abuse land because we regard it as a commodity belonging to us. When we see land as a community to which we belong, we may begin to use it with love and respect. And that leads to one more quick read. Here's how I think about it. However broadly or narrowly one defines identical genes, I am in a sense alive in a mind-boggling number of creatures in a staggering range of environments around the globe through the DNA we share. I leap, I fly, I slither, I shimmer with iridescent scales in the waters off Zanzibar, and I stretch my petals towards the light in far northern Siberia. Being more closely related to avocados, ants, and aardvarks than most people suspect doesn't dilute our stature as humans, but instead increases it many-fold. It renders us more than human. This is our deep heritage, an old, enduring, I'm having trouble with the light here, folks, an old, enduring kinship as big as the living world. So this 4 Fists of Grizzly is a title for a book, doesn't have anything to do with me fancying myself as big and strong or with my table manners when I'm eating salmon or anything like that. I am 4 Fists of Grizzly, at least, because I share at least 80% of my genes with a grizzly bear. They're identical. And that's not surprising because we do that with virtually every species of mammal on the planet. Your dog, maybe sitting beside you while you're on screen here, you share about 85% of your genes, 86% with a cow. So I am 4 fifths a snow leopard, an elephant, a mouse. And I think a lot of people know you're 98 to 99% identically genetically with a chimpanzee. That's part of who we are. That's part of how I think about nature and my nature. And although we may know about our relationships with mammals, not as many people are aware of the facts that if you move out into the rest of the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom of the living world, the figures are about 50 to 60% identical with fish, 30 to 40% with insects, including some of the most bizarre and alien forms you can imagine. I'm plants, 20 to 30%. I'm 24% identical to a wine grape, and some nights maybe a little bit more than that. 7% of my genes are shared with bacteria, which outnumber the stars in the universe in just, if you just were to count the ones in the landscape you can see around you. And 8% of our genome, what builds us and makes life possible, is a viral origin. So with COVID, we're so used to thinking of viruses as, something we need to be very wary of. If you stand in a square yard out on your porch for 24 hours, you will have 800 million viruses shower down upon you. This is a microbial and viral planet. And we're part of it. They're in us. And so when I think of our greater selves, it goes in our connections to the rest of nature and to life. When I'm talking to people who say, well, I kind of like environmental work and I kind of get it, you're into nature, but I'm not all that into nature myself. I mean, it's just, I don't have that background or whatever reason it is. And I say, well, you're not into nature in your thinking, but nature is totally into you. So I just talked about genes, but how about the fact that I started off as a microbe, right in there with all the rest of the majority and diversity of the living planet. But I grew into a human with about 30 trillion cells. But I have more cells than that in me and on me of bacteria, archaea, protozoans, and fungi, of microbes. They help me digest my food. They produce vitamins that I can't make myself. They form a majority of our, well, some people say the microbes in our gut system alone are the biggest gland in our body. Our stomach is the biggest gland because they are defending us against harmful microbes. They are producing psychoactive compounds that influence our thoughts. This is a great frontier in medicine. And I think most people are starting to talk about prebiotics and probiotics now. But the fact that in addition to keeping us healthy and moderating disease, these things are also influencing our moods and thoughts to an extent that we don't understand. And that in turn is influenced by our environment. So I have 22,000 human genes. I have, with the thousands of species of microbes in and on me, 8 million microbial genes. If you ground me up and put me through a mass analyzer, I'm mostly microbial. And every cell in my body and in every living thing, plant, animal, pick a category except bacteria and archaea, which are much like bacteria. They all have these little energy organelles called mitochondria. And I know I'm telling you, a lot of you, things you know well, but the public doesn't understand that these mitochondria that fuel everything we do, there are life support, they're the spark of life, as close as you can get to it, because they give us the energy for metabolism, for moving and thinking and feeling and everything possible. They are modified ancient bacteria living inside each of our cells, every plant cell. And it, I don't know, to me, this is just a knockout concept, a fact that wasn't known until a couple of decades ago. And here we are setting ourselves aside from the rest of nature. It's hard to avoid thinking that way because of our language, our religions, our philosophies. We are somehow, there's humans here, and across the Great Divide, there's nature and beasts and brutes and so on. But even those of us who think ecologically, still, there's still a feeling that we are not quite like the rest of nature. And we are somehow liberated from a lot of it and independent and individual. But in fact, we're symbiotic creatures. Nature is embedded within us, and we are embedded within nature. And it couldn't be any clearer when you get down to the smaller level. So the big obstacle, look, it's tough to be a greenie. I mean, you're out there. You all know it probably better than I do, but you are always trying to stop some ill-conceived projects, trying to alarm, not necessarily, being an alarmist, but trying to wake people up to what's going on. You get dissed as being anti-progress, whiny. We're the antis, is how a lot of things are pervaded. And we're here trying to keep our life support system going and talking to people that don't really understand that life support system is, we're compound critters. We're joint ventures. We are nature. It's one and the same thing. It isn't an other. It isn't something you can be more interested in than other special categories of activity. Oh, he's one of those nature people. She's always out, naturalizing. But it's like, no, you're just sitting here talking to you. I'm just Chucky Jam full of nature. I'm moved in ways I don't really understand yet. These are all very recent scientific breakthroughs. So it's all about symbiosis in nature. When I see a tree, and we're arguing over saving a forest, saving old growth, climate change, carbon sequestration, I'm seeing the green part of the tree, the above ground part of the tree, or a shrub or a grass. We know they have roots, but the people we're talking with don't know that in virtually every plant species examined so far, those roots are connected to hundreds, if not thousands of miles of mycorrhizal fungi. And that's what's bringing the nutrients and water, especially under difficult conditions, to that tree. If you go out and just grab a spade full of soil, you've got thousands of miles of these invisible fungal threads that are in a symbiotic relationship with the tree. When you look at the green leaves, you're seeing the chloroplasts, which, like mitochondria, are modified ancient bacteria that learned how to photosynthesize. That's what produces our oxygen. A tree is a partnership. We're a partnership. And I know I'm going on about this, but it's a simple, fundamental concept that is still startling to a lot of people because they're still thinking about how do we value nature? Well, I think we can get along without too much of it. So at the basic level, our understanding has been expanded by science at a terrific pace, but the public isn't keeping up. There's no such thing as an individual organism above the level of bacteria, and there's no such thing as being apart from nature. And here we are arguing over it. This is just mystifying to me that it's a hard thing to get these concepts across. And one reason I'm glad for this opportunity to talk today is I'm not smart enough to figure this out, but we've got so many people, dedicated people out here working in such an array of conservation efforts. Maybe you'll be able to figure it out, or maybe you can find ways to get this message about the fact that we are nature and we can't keep treating it as an option. Conservation is one of many competing special interests sort of attitude. So we end up in the Anthropocene. You all know the problems associated with look, humans have been around. Homo sapiens has been around for 350,000 years. It wasn't until 12,000 years ago, just a tick of the clock, that the human population on the planet surpassed 1 million. It was not until after the Industrial Revolution that we numbered collectively more than 1 billion. We're now at 8 billion. When I was studying how to practice conservation, what's required, how do we interact with the public, how do we interact with each other, all the things needed to successfully conserve a healthy planet, natural settings. And when I was in college, there were only about 2.53 billion people on the planet. So it's almost tripled. And so when we're feeling at sea and under the gun, under pressure, we're always fighting a rear guard action or a holding action, it seems sometimes. It's like, well, we've never been remotely in any position in history like now. There's never been humans with a footprint that extends across about 93% of the Earth's surface. We've never looked at coming decades, by 2050, they figure the plastics in the ocean are going to outweigh the fish at the current rate. So we don't know what to do. But all I can think of is keep doing everything you're doing, educate, 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 and find some way to get I'm not going to go into more doom and gloom. I'm trying to figure out a way out of this. And I want to talk about, before I finally shut up here, there have been some terrific breakthroughs in medical technology, modern medicine, physiology, biochemistry, and psychology, molecular biology. And they're all telling us one thing, is if you go out in a green space or a wild country or just a pleasant kind of outdoor setting, let's just say you're in contact with nature. It can be in a small urban park. It can be while gardening in your suburban yard. It can be in a wild expanse up in the middle of the Brooks Range. But it's the same response in your body and in your mind. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, your immune system, the T cells and other defenses are strongly strengthened, and your cognitive abilities are boosted. You are thinking more clearly, you have a more relaxed general awareness. And the results are from such studies as have been done in the Orient, in Australia, and Europe, and in the US, is that contact with nature makes you healthier, and it makes you happier, and it increases longevity. People who live in neighborhoods with more trees live longer than those with fewer trees, even. This is, to me, powerful stuff. If you take more intense version of communing with nature, called forest bathing, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that, where you go out and immerse your senses in a woodland, say. In Japan and South Korea, if you take guided forest bathing sessions, your health insurance company will pay for it. It's that good for your health. And if you have someone walking along with you measuring these responses, it's going to happen to you no matter what. So what do you want out of nature? I mean, it's offering all these changes in us. They can't pin it down. I can't tell you right now why this happens. But I can tell you there's plenty of data backing up that it does. It's a universal process, and it probably has something to do with our evolution as primates for millions of years in a setting in which there was no such thing as outdoors or wilderness, because it was all outdoors and wilderness. But it may have to do with the fact that when you go to a natural setting, your microbial diversity, you get a greater array of your partner microbes that's healthier for your system, especially immunity. I was reading about outdoor schools in Finland, where the kids spend the majority of the day learning outdoors in preschool and early grades. And their cognitive abilities, they test really, really well, way superior to kids in a normal classroom setting. And their disease resistance and immunity in general is much higher. So there are a lot of levels to come at this sort of contact with nature. Some is good, more is better. And so instead of being the antis or the conservationists who are always out there complaining about this, that, and the other thing and trying to stop another bad development, we're the people who have the new news that nature, the things that's most important to us, living a long, healthy, happy life, is right here. You combine the effects of being in a green space, and you can simply be sitting on a bench. You combine that with exercise, which produces many of the same results, and you've got a double bonus for the things we value. So one more statistic here. Americans spend more than 90% of their lives indoors. These are studies by public health groups. And if you think about your own life, I don't know what percentage it would be, but it's high. And 75% of Americans live in large urban settings, or urban settings of more than 100,000 people. 1/3 of Americans suffer anxiety and depression, and are being treated for it or taking drugs. And half of Americans are categorized as obese. So this is who we're talking to and dealing with out there. People who could stand to benefit greatly from a true view of what makes us human, what does being human mean, and what is nature. And, you know, being one with nature sounds like an aspiration. It isn't, because we already are. We respond to it at the primal level. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I hope a lot of people can find ways to work with that, get that message out. And it's such a positive, people talk about nature positivity. That's the essence of it. And, you know, I can only get the information out there, and I could, if you wanted more details, you would look into the fact we have I'm going to get geeky for just a minute and then I'll close, but your autonomic nervous system, which runs all the things you don't have to pay attention to, from your heartbeat to breathing, is called the parasympathetic system. And it's also the rest and relaxation system. Functions best in a quiet space like nature. Then there's the sympathetic system, which is your fight or flight part of the nervous system. It produces stress and anxiety, but we have it just like we have the parasympathetic system, the rest and relaxation, because they're both very valuable in our survival. You can find these in other vertebrates from fish on up. It's a useful way, or it's a very adaptive structure to the nervous system to have these two parts. But what I'm saying is, in a modern urban life, you're in a city surrounded by strangers and noise and constant distractions, and you have chronic activation of your sympathetic system. I'm just going to say the fight or flight system. And in the long run, that leads to anxiety and depression that in turn make us more vulnerable to all the ailments of the modern world that you see, especially in crowded urban areas: diabetes, disease, obesity, heart problems, so on, stress-related outcomes. So anyway, that taking care of, what I'm saying, I'll close, is taking care of nature is sometimes thought of as a sacrifice. First, we think it's a choice. It isn't, for our long-term survival, but we also view it as giving something up. It requires a sacrifice, and maybe of money, maybe of, temporarily of money, jobs, the usual excuses for more. But in the long run, taking care of nature is the opposite of a sacrifice, the best thing we can do for ourselves, for someone you near and dear to you, for Joe Blow next door, for your community, and ultimately for human survival and the survival of the planet. So I don't know if this sounds like I really need to get out and do more, or this guy's just raving, but this is how I've been thinking, and I wanted to share it with you guys who are down in the trenches and, saving animals one by one with an animal rescue, or saving this river. I mean, do more of that. Don't stop doing anything, but see if you can find a way to teach a few more people about what a human is and the nature in us. So that's it.
Thank you, Douglas. That was amazing. And again, a great holiday gift for yourself or somebody else is 4/5 a Grizzly. This is Douglas's 15th book. And he's also written for the Smithsonian and Nat Geo and others. Okay, well, I've got to ask you one question. What was the scariest moment that you had dealing with wildlife?
Say it one more time, please.
What was the scariest moment you had dealing with wildlife?
Meeting a Republican? I was that close to, I'd even been where they were all around me.
Oh my gosh.
No,
Okay.
I don't want to tell war stories about I've had
grizzly bears.
I've had a
Was it
grizzly
a
bear
grizzly?
come so close that it brushed against me actually at a salmon stream. But that's because it was looking over its shoulder at a bigger bear that it was worried about. And I was just wallpaper. And I've had rhino charges and wild elephant charges and all that stuff, but I'd rather tell you about my biggest wake up was we were doing stories on humpback whales, and I was underwater holding my breath because they use bubbles as kind of an aggressive signal sometimes. So you don't want to have scuba. So just free diving, and a young humpback was only about maybe 35 or 40 feet long, came zooming over, and they have big pectoral fins. I thought it was going to, run right over me, but it just opened them up and stopped, and I'm nose to nose with this creature. And I felt like maybe a bug that I was honored that somebody stopped by and bent down to look at me on a leaf. And you realize they have a brain about 3 times the size of ours. Sperm whales have one 6 times the size of ours. And that's a convoluted cerebral cortex up there. That's not a simple mass of tissue to work muscles and nerves. It's a thinking machine. And I just remember coming back up onto the boat after having this grand creature examine me for a while, and then I'm literally being nose to nose with it. You can't even be eye to eye because its head's so big, its eyes like 4 feet away on down the side. But I got up on the boat and I thought, oh, now what? How am I ever going to beat this? And I'm thinking that way because, of these other encounters I've had with animals, but that positive one, that being studied by an animal with who knows what kind of mind, but when that big and imposing and that ultimately gentle was the highlight.
Well, I can't think of anything better to end on. Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate all your good work and your involvement with Earth Gives and Earth Gives Day. We hope you spread the word and bring other friends and folks within your communities into the fray. It takes a community, and we appreciate all of you.